Assalamu alaikum. It is exactly 8:51 a.m. News and views on Salam Media. And I do know that last week the Hujjaj certainly and their families back in South Africa were in panic mode because we'd heard that the medical clinic in Medina had been closed down by the Saudi authorities. We spoke to Shaheen Essop at the time, but he's back online with us once again to give us the good news, inshallah. Shaheen Essop, President of South African Hajj and Umrah Council. Assalamu alaikum to you. Welcome to the program.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan to everybody at Salam Media, to the viewers and the listeners out there. First of all, just a correction. Last week, the clinic was not shut down by the Saudi authorities. That is totally misleading from some of the detractor groups out there that are trying to make mischief in terms of SAHUC's abilities to serve the Hujjaj. The place that we normally used to have the clinic in, which was in the Taiba Center, the building changed management, and as a result of which the new management did not want us to operate a clinic from within that building, and as a result we had to vacate the premises that we had acquired lawfully and through process. The purpose of which we had the clinic within that Taiba center was to be in proximity of the Hujjaj, to make it easy for them to get to the clinic when needed. Unfortunately, as a result of what had transpired, we now had to move the clinic outside of what they call the ring road in Medina, alhamdulillah, and that has now opened up for services. And I'm sure that you're seeing some indication from Hujjaj that they either have to take a taxi or they have to take an Uber to this particular facility, which is a little bit away, and especially with road closures around the Haram, it makes it quite difficult. We're hoping, inshallah, that in the new year coming for 2024, when we do engage with the authorities, we can get an exemption because of the size of our Hajj mission, or the size of our Hujjaj in terms of the quota. If that is the case, then we will certainly try to be back within the proximity of the Hujjaj for the future year. But for this year, until the 25th of Dhul Al-Qadah, we will operate from the premises that we have now acquired. And alhamdulillah, must say that as much as it may be difficult from a point of view of getting yourself there as a pilgrim in Medina, they are very pleasantly surprised when they are treated well. The doctors and nurses are looking after them, and alhamdulillah, the pilgrims come back with very positive accolades. There's a lady that visited the clinic, put something out on social media, basically saying the clinic is very far. We had to take an Uber to get there, but big ups to the doctors and nurses, very helpful and pleasant. So alhamdulillah, that is exactly what SAHUC is there about. And SAHUC is there to make sure that we can treat you, we can look after you, and we can make sure that complementing the operators and the operators' khadims, we give the pilgrims a journey of a lifetime, inshallah.
Shaheen, you are correct in saying that there was some negative publicity around the closing of this clinic in Medina, supposedly by the Saudi authorities. And thank you for correcting that, because in that same article, there were pictures of, medical supplies. I stand corrected. Medical supplies being transported by SAHUC from point A to point B, and the suggestion was that it wasn't being done correctly. I'm sure you know what I'm referring to. Can you correct that narrative, please?
Certainly, Julie. We ship out our medicines from South Africa via a shipping agent into Medina. We clear all our meds with the SFDA, which is the Saudi Food and Drug Administration in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Now, the mere fact that our medicines arrive in cargo, in the cartons or in the boxes that they are supposed to arrive in, the SFDA would obviously rubbish it and destroy it if it were not couriered, or if it were not transported in a manner that is conducive for it to be done so. The open truck that we saw is a truck that we hire, and all the cartons are basically loaded onto the truck and covered with a tarpaulin to move it from point A to point B. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the meds, because the meds are in the perfect condition that they were ordered from the suppliers in South Africa, couriered to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and then transported to the facility where we need to actually meet out services to the Hujjaj.
Shaheen, let's understand, why is it that we're sending the medication from South Africa to the kingdom? to service our Hujjaj, the South African Hujjaj. Could we not source it from the kingdom itself, or are there cost implications involved? And also, I should imagine certain brand names that the Hujjaj will not be familiar with or not be happy with, because they would then deem it as generics. Is that perhaps part of the reason?
Actually, in 2016, in fact, no, sorry, let me go back. In 2012, when I was the first, when I first joined the mission in 2012 in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, we looked at the different facilities and we looked at different options in terms of sourcing. We then, on another occasion, when we went up to go and do the agreements with the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah, spent some time with, pharmaceutical groups in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Unfortunately, what we found is that the costing of medication in the kingdom was 3 times more expensive than what it would be in South Africa. Firstly, from a cost point of view. Secondly, the added factor is the exchange rate differential. So you have to obviously convert into Saudi riyals and then, make the necessary payments. And the third situation is that the company was only offering generics, and those generics come out of Egypt and 1 or 2 of the other, pharmaceutical producing countries. So the quality, according to the doctors that we have on board and that we had on board, Allah Yarhamu, Dr. Akil Token had indicated that the quality of medicine that we are getting in South Africa, that we can ship over for the benefit of our pilgrims, is far superior than what is being sourced or what is being sold over the counter in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And that is the main reason why we make sure that the highest quality of medicines are basically, sent across to the kingdom to make sure that our Hujjaj get the best possible service.
You're a great ambassador for SAHUC, I must say, because the facts and figures that you have to hand is amazing. And I'm also, as you were speaking, I was just thinking, Shaheen, that it is so valuable for us to be having these discussions, because these are things people possibly think about and make that, jump to their own wrong conclusions. And by way of these interviews, we're able to put things into perspective. Alhamdulillah for that.
100%.
Because and as you were speaking, I've just realized what a massive task you guys undertake as SAHUC, because it's not only accrediting the Hujjaj, it's not only accrediting the operators, it's the logistics involved in just a simple thing. We may just think it's a simple thing as, getting medication over to the kingdom. It's a huge task. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward one and all for this undertaking.
And I must say,
With,
Julie, just to interject and add, every single one of us on the board or in the subcommittees that actually work for SAHUC, on this voluntary basis, have day jobs. As you and I are being interviewed, I'm not sitting at a SAHUC office. I don't work for SAHUC. I have my own day job, and we do this, but we do it for the pleasure of Allah and for the pleasure of serving the guests of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Thumma ameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of your efforts. Still in keeping with the issue around the clinics, my producer Nasreen just asked me, she says, so now what happens when they move to Makkah? Will there be a clinic available there? And I guess this is, this is a valid question. People do wonder. I mean, Medina, I've had the services of South African doctors and medical care workers. What's going to happen to me when I get to Makkah, for example? And I explained to her that same contingent of people will then move to Makkah. But correct me if I'm giving the wrong information.
No, 100% correct, Julie. We've never ever had a situation where we don't have clinics elsewhere. So as we've always said in our interviews and as we've always said in our roadshows, clinic facilities are provided in Medina, Makkah, and in Azizia. And alhamdulillah, the first batch of Hujjaj that left Medina after their stay, the first entrance into Medina, had gone into Makkah, and we're seeing between 30 and 40 people per day at the moment at the clinic in Makkah. We publicized the location of the clinic, where the clinic is situated, and it's in proximity, alhamdulillah, of the area that all the Hujjaj are going to be staying in once everybody converges into Makkah. So yes, we have a contingent of doctors and nurses that are currently in Medina. We have another contingent of doctors and nurses that are going to be in Makkah until the 30th of Dhul Al-Qadah, and then from the 1st of Dhul Hijjah, we will have our clinic facility meted out in Azizia. This is the process by which we follow and we work with every year. We start in Medina because that's the first arrival point. Then we move to Makkah because that's the second arrival point. We move to Azizia because that will be the third, point of residence for the pilgrims until the 5 days of Hajj. And on the 5 days of Hajj, we've basically sourced clinic tents, if you want to call it, or facilities in the camp, to do primary healthcare in the camp as well, to deal with people that want to walk and get dehydrated, and to deal with people that have blisters and the likes. But any major requirement in terms of let's say I'm at a loss for words here, but anyway, if it, once in Mina, and we need to escalate a case, we escalate it to the field clinics that the Saudi government provides after we've seen them, alhamdulillah.
So, in a situation like that, if you have cases of emergencies or very serious cases that need to be hospitalized, do they first go to the Saudi tents and then from there do they get hospitalized? And with that many pilgrims in the Holy Lands at that time of year during the Hajj season, what's the medical care like in the Saudi hospitals? And would it be free or do they have to pay?
No, alhamdulillah. Once an escalation is needed in the camp in Mina, we basically get in touch with the Muassasa who have got ambulances on hand. Ambulances will then take the person once we have a referral letter from our doctors that will take them directly to the hospital. And alhamdulillah, all the services are free from that point of view. Likewise, the SAHUC services are free from the money that you've paid. 1,650 rand is what the pilgrim pays, and he gets repatriated into servicing them in Medina, in Makkah, and in Azizia, as well as the meet and greet at the various airports and various other aspects. So you can imagine if you go to a doctor in South Africa and you're going to get meds from that doctor, it's going to cost you between 600 and 1,000 rand. Here we're charging the pilgrim 1,650 to do on-the-ground services, to do medical services, and everything else. That money gets repatriated back into service. But the escalation to the Saudi hospital only happens after our doctors have seen them and our doctors have basically exhausted the resources, in terms of making sure that that pilgrim can be seen to on the plains of Mina or Arafah, wherever they may be.
And because we're talking medical issues here regarding Hajj, the Hajj season, and obviously US SAHUC being the intermediary between, obviously the Hujjaj and the authorities there in the Holy Lands, people who have medical aid in South Africa, let's assume they encounter very serious medical conditions, maybe they need to be operated upon, etc. Would their medical aids hold them in good stead, or are those services also offered free of charge by the Saudi government?
Up to a limited extent, it is free of charge to the point that medical insurance or insurance is basically included in the cost of the visa that every pilgrim, and our mission workers basically have to pay for when they acquire that visa. So that particular person will then go into a hospital. All the medical needs will be taken care of. If there is an extended stay in the hospital for whatever purpose there may be, when that point of exhaustion comes on, the hospital will inform the pilgrim's next of kin that's with them, or inform the operator, or inform SAHUC of that particular point. And I think it is at that point where somebody's medical aid would obviously then start kicking in, in order to make the necessary payments along the way.
Makes perfectly good sense. Thank you indeed for that. I'd actually forgotten that when you pay with your credit card, you are automatically covered for.
No, this is totally separate from that, Judy.
Is it? Okay.
When you're paying for your airline tickets with your credit card, you've got insurance, up to a limited extent. But when you're paying for your visa, and this has been introduced a few years ago, whether it be Umrah visa or Hajj visa, you have to pay an insurance. And the reason being is because they've now taken out this whole insurance process. In the past, it was never there, because there was a strain being put onto the medical facilities in the kingdom. People would come there with the intent, and I'm not saying from South Africa, from other parts of the world, they'd come there with the intent that they want to do a bypass, or they want to do an open heart surgery. Now, that's a costly exercise. And if you don't have the relevant insurance for it, then obviously you need to, you're either going to need to pay it out of the pocket, but it was being paid for through the resources of Saudi Arabia. What they've done is about 4 or 5 years ago, they introduced this medical insurance that helps to abate some of the costs involved in some of these major surgeries.
Shane, you've given us most useful information today regarding medical services and support in the Holy Lands. Much, much appreciated. And undoubtedly, the opening and closing times of the clinics in the different cities, Medina, Makkah, and Azizia, obviously will be or has already been communicated to the different operators, and they then disseminate it to their different groups. Am I correct?
100% so, Julie. We've done it on social media platforms, as well as doing it directly with the operators, to make sure that all the Hujjaj are very capable of understanding, the needs and the requirements. Obviously, during Salah times, we do not open the clinic because our people also need to pray. But
Absolutely.
beyond that, there's also times for, for lunch or for supper. And I think it's only fair that everybody gets a time to rest a little bit in order to do that. Last year, when I was in the kingdom on the Hajj mission, there was a time where we saw up to 135 people per day at our clinic. So,
Sure.
it takes a daunting task, and it takes a lot out of the medical staff. So they need to have a rest. And that is why we have so many medical staff, because we have a rotational shift, through the different times, to make sure that they can adequately see to the needs of the pilgrims and give the correct, prognosis, and, give them the correct service in that way.
Okay, I've got a call here. Someone's asking a question. I hope I'm going to read it out correctly. Says, I need to ask you if you're moving to Robertsham soon. I don't know, you as a family or your officers. The message is a
SAHUC
bit
has
cryptic.
Okay, SAHUC has basically acquired, property in the Robertsham area, and the reason for that
Okay.
is because we've, been a rent payer in Fordsburg at different places, and rental has escalated quite considerably. Now, in order to try and contain costs and to maintain, reasonable process going forward and longevity, the offices of SAHUC could move to Robertsham once that is complete.
Okay, so you're going to be our neighbor. Looking forward to that, inshallah.
Fantastic,
Take care, keep
fantastic.
us in your duas. Until the next time, I'm sure we're still going to have many more discussions in the coming days regarding Hajj and Sahuk. So just be prepared. Jazakallah once again for your time. Salaam alaikum to you.
Jazakallah khairan for the opportunity once again, Julia, and to Salam Media. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It is exactly 9:08. News and views on Salam Media, and standing by to talk with us is Professor Mary Metcalf. We're going to be looking at the issue around the United Kingdom luring, I don't know if that's the right word to use, or offering South African teachers an amount of almost R250,000 for relocation costs to the UK. I wish I were a teacher. Unfortunately not, because I'd have jumped at that offer. It is 9 after 9 exactly. In a minute or two, we'll be joined by Professor Metcalf. Please stay with us.